We're welcoming you to the Lunchtime Lecture of the Moravian Music Foundation and Moravian Archives here in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. This is when it came closer and closer to the time, I was amazed at how many people were saying, "I'll be there," and they all said, "And you're going to show the great map." Well, as far as the great map goes, no, that is Wachovia, not Salem. The title is Mapping Salem. This is, after all, the 250th anniversary of Winston and Salem. So we're going to concentrate on that, not the great map. You can all leave if you want to now. The other thing is that I had a sneaky idea, and I shared this only with Nicole, my assistant archivist who keeps me out of trouble. I thought of Daniel Cruz, my predecessor, who made the mistake once of facetiously saying, "And of course you know about the tunnel between the sister's house and the brother's house in Salem." And a few months later, he heard people talking very deadpan-faced, in all honesty, believing every word that Daniel said, that there was a tunnel underneath the Salem Square. My notion was to present a newly discovered map of Salem with an X right there in the middle of Salem Square. And the notation, "Here lieth the Holy Grail." And I imagine Salem congregation sending me the bill for all the potholes dug by people in Salem Square. So that with that introduction, let's see what we can do on this. It works. Not yesterday. Check your batteries. For the Winston-Salem's 250th, remember we began it last February 14th, somebody's birthday, with finally getting the Lord to say, "My name shall be here in Salem," right there, dead center Salem Square, along with the Holy Grail. We have a few interesting maps here at this archive. Among them, we had to get through Virginia in order to come from Bethlehem in Pennsylvania. Some people ask, how many miles are there to go? When you see the milepost on Interstate 77 ticking off 325, you know you're almost in West Virginia. I do like this map. The Commonwealth of Virginia declares there are 4 copies of this map. I don't know if they knew about this one, but it is by Joshua Fry and Thomas Jefferson's father, 1751. Look at the great export going out. The gold of America. What is it? Tobacco. Thank you. King James I had a conniption over it. Said it was bad for your health. We should have listened to him. If you have good eyes staring at our great map, our Peter Jefferson map, you'll find that over here you can see very lightly somebody had penciled in Wachovia. No, I did not do it. Now to acquaint people with what we're talking about, let's show us the 100,000 acres of land that the Moravian Church purchased from the Earl of Granville, John Carteret, the last Lord Proprietor of the Carolina colonies, the last remaining one. His colony, his land holdings extended from William Byrd's line with Virginia, And down here, the southern boundary of Davidson and Rowan counties, heading out westward to, well, the grant from the King of England doesn't say how far it goes, probably until the French say, "No, monsieur, this is Louisiana." Now, the tract of land we purchased, we named what? What did we call it? Devakau, or Wachovia as we know it today. No, that isn't a bank, not anymore. We have here a 1759 map of Devakau, Wachovia, drawn by our surveyor sent from Europe to tell the Moravian Church in Europe, our headquarters, what kind of a pig and a poke, 100,000 acres, did we buy in the Carolina colonies. Here is that Wachovia on a more or less modern day map, showing that the southern boundary of Wachovia is, the Davidson County line. Friedberg is just barely in it, sometimes not. The others, Hope Church of Salem, what we're celebrating this time, Friedland, our first settlement, and Bethania, our second settlement in 1759, first planned community. And the reason it is a planned community is that we had somebody to plan it. Christian Gottlieb Reuter, our church surveyor, who was sent from Europe in 1756 to survey church properties. Among other things, he laid out the community of Lidditz, Pennsylvania, another settlement congregation like Salem. He was finally called to Wachovia in 1758, and he arrived July 22nd. I love his comment in his memoir, how he felt when he first stepped on Wachovia ground. I felt very good and thought, this is the Savior's land. Now I am going to be his surveyor. And boy, did he ever do it and a half. We're going to look at a few of his maps, and the little discussion he had with the Unity Administrator here in Wachovia, Frederick William Marshall. Christian Gottlieb Reuter very frequently put his initials or wrote out his name on the maps he produced. Philip Christoph Gottlieb Reuter. One of the among his many tasks, he had to keep track of who bought what land in Wachovia. It is not healthy if you happen to sell 1 inch more of land to someone after you've already sold it to someone else. It just does not work. Right, Bethany? Thank you. She's done investigation for the last 2 weeks. Salem College intern to try to track down exactly what does Salem congregation own. It's lots of fun. I said I wasn't going to show the great map. I have a reason for showing the great map. This is tract 1 of the great map, and I'm sorry, it is a humongous thing, about 4 by 4 feet wide, totaling, tract 1 of 4. The 4 maps together total something like 64 square feet of map. It shows exactly what Wachovia consisted of. The kind of trees that were here, the land, whether it was good farming land, rocky land, marshy, so on and so forth. it is a complete, not only topographical map, but a flora map showing all the vegetation on it. A gold mine that someday we might have a lunchtime lecture devoted entirely to the great map. Not this time. This is tract 2. And the reason I'm showing it is, son of a gun, he made a pretty good drawing of, guess what? There's that little thing there. Salem, 250th anniversary of Salem. Now, we had thought that he had begun making this his great map in 1761, 2, and 3. Now remember, this is a guy who is terrified, goes out into the wilderness, the North Carolina wilderness in the colony, trees, mammoth trees, this, that, and the other. He has a terror of 1, snakes, 2, thunderstorms, and 3, he gets sick every so often. 2 out of the 3 we have in abundance here in North Carolina, snakes and thunderstorms. And yet he trekked out into the countryside, surveying the entirety of Wachovia. That was also during the French and Indian War. You have no idea who's hiding around the next tree. He survived, never ran across any of the Native Americans. Not in that war, but as they came through Salem, of course, he met them. Little close-up more of this map of Salem. The most interesting thing I found about it was that he was supposed to have finished these maps in 1763, 64, 65. Well, Salem hadn't even been placed placed on the map of Wachovia, and yet he already had it. 1763, 64, 65, he made additions to this map. Someone a number of years ago asked how old it was, what the last addition to the great map was, and I said I had no idea. And then she proceeded to find there in 1870-something, somebody was adding more tract of land sold off from Wachovia. A map being in use for more than 100 years, designating this property has been sold, that property been sold, on and on. Now I'm pausing here because you can see here's Salem Square. Up here are the building lots of Salem. The second house is here. Now if he placed this map, if he drew this onto the map in 1766, which is when we began building Salem, he would have put the square right here, because that's where he wanted it. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple of minutes. Christian Gottlieb Reuter also, had to do some gardening work, keep track of the medicine garden in Bethabara. And when you start selling off land, the people are going to want to see exactly what is the survey to go along with the deed, so they'll know precisely what square inch they actually own, so that it isn't the neighbors, next door neighbors. Oh, you don't want your neighbor to drive his car over your very square inch of property, right? Oh, she isn't going to say so. This one is the deed to John Schaub, as you can see, in 1769. I believe this is the first actual sale of Wachovia land in North Carolina. Previously, the linebacks will tell me, yes, they had bought theirs in Europe. They're the only ones who came over from Europe after purchasing. Down here is John Schaub's land on a map by another surveyor of the Moravian Church. This is Friedrich Christian Meinung. His map, actually he did, guess what? 4 maps, like the Great Map, to show what land had been taken up, what land had been sold. The hatch marks mean precisely this, that, or the other. And he patterned the entirety, all 4 of his maps. Northwest section, Tractus 1. Northeast section, Tractus 2. Yes, he patterned his maps after the great map of Christian Gottlieb Reuter. Oh, why did Christian Gottlieb Reuter go to all that trouble about the great map? Well, to find out what land had been sold. That's important. But yes, to report to the church administration in Europe with another map. Yes, he made 2 copies of at least 1 tract. I have seen that copy. Thank you, Old Salem. I think it's in a copy of it is in your collection from the Herrnhut Archive. But that's just of 1 tract. I haven't seen the other 3 tracts. I don't know where they are, but I'm pretty sure Christian Gottlieb Reuter made 2 copies. We kept 1. He sent the other on to a higher administration.
Richard, I can't help but do this. Over in the kind of the southeast corner there.
Southeast corner. Let's see what goes southeast corner.
Well, the lettering there, is that backwards?
Nay. Friedrich Christian Meinung had the habit of letting you stand on your head to read his maps. He just turned it all upside down. Hither, thither, and yon. I haven't found a pattern. Surveyors always have a reason for doing something. So I'm having that's opportunity for exploration.
Where's that Dorothea? Is that the name of that creek, which is now Muddy Creek?
Yes, indeed. The Dorothea is Muddy Creek over here. Down there is Clemens. Over here is Louisville.
Where's that name?
Huh?
Where's that name come from?
I'm sorry, I can't hear. Ask me after. And of course, you do the survey for the Salem town lot of 3,159 3/4 acres. Be sure Salem congregation gets that 3/4 acres. And in the very middle, you place, yes, we have the town of Salem, having built our first builder's cabin and so on and so forth. When you get instructions from Europe, build a nice big administrative city, you kind of say, okay, well, you really wanted a circle? The church is right here in the middle. That's north. That looks suspiciously like a compass rose of Christian Gottlieb Reuter used. And you'll notice up here at the east, guess where God's Acre is? Yeah. So we in the band will be able to find it Easter sunrise up here. It's all you do. Get your compass out, head 90 degrees from north. We don't have, I have not run across this original map in this archive, but we do have this one. And yes, it's exactly like the other one, but I don't recognize the handwriting. It doesn't look or feel like Christian Gottlieb Reuter. I don't know who drew this map. Yep, there's north. Yep, there's east. And hey, band, you know where you can go to play Easter sunrise service. That didn't work. This is what we came up to be. You have the Lord has told you you can build your Salem on a nice thin ridge of a hill stretching from the north going downstream toward to the south. Downstream, that's important. And so you come up in your Salem town lot. This was a preliminary in 1766. Oh, you notice the cartouche material that shows up in our logo of Winston-Salem 250th. So keep this in mind, and we'll show you'll see it again at the end of this program. Here he laid out, Christian Gottlieb Reuter laid out Salem with a main street, called it that, 60 feet wide. The two side streets are Church Street and Cedar Avenue. And Liberty Street, oh, that's for old timers. Salt Street, as it is called today, and what it had been before, because it was salty there. Had a salt works there. Very important when preserving food, like hogs. Let's have a closer look. The first, number one, is the first house of Salem. Actually, the first cabin, the workers' cabin, a log structure. And number two was, well, the house for the little house for the day workers, not members of the Moravian church. Number three, the first, what is now called the first house on Main Street. And guess what? Letter A, where Christian Gottlieb Reuter said that's where the square ought to be. Right across, let's see, today, in today's terms, here is Bank Street, Main Street, Academy Street. There's where the square ought to be. That's where Frederick William Marshall said put it. Church Street, there's the church where it is today. The New Boys School at the top of the hill. Cedarhurst, the castle, home of the Provincial Elders Conference. So you can see Christian Gottlieb Reuter had all the building houses right here, right adjoining the square. Nice and compact. Guess who won that argument? There's our first house. You recognize it here in Salem. And yet another map of Salem. It's hanging in the hallway out here on the second floor. It looks a whole lot better in the hallway. But there's that compass rose that looks sort of like the one that showed up on that circular design for Salem that would not fit in the territory here. The first house, second house, the two-story house, then third, fourth, fifth, so on and so forth. This is the square that Christian Gottlieb Reuter wanted to have. What was wrong with that notion to have it there? Your water comes from up there in Winston, in the water reservation where a Calvary church is now, and the springs up there along, well, shall we call it Spring Street? That's why. Here's where Frederick William Marshall said it's going to be there, the square, because it is 3 to 4 feet down, further downstream to actually get the water to flow. And aside from that, at the very top of Bank Street, Graham, how much higher is that than down here where the boys' school is? That's, that's about 10, 15 feet. We walk it practically every day and start huffing and puffing. Now let's see. Back to the great map, tract 2 of the great map, and you see the Christian Gottlieb Reuter. yes indeed, has the square where Frederick William Marshall, our Unity Administrator, had first declared, there's where it's going to be. There are those houses way up there. They're practically out of town. But Brother Mitch and his little tobacco shop is there. The first part of the wood and daubing part of the brother's house is here. The Gemeindhaus is here. That was consecrated. The Gemeindhaus was consecrated on November 13th, 1771. The Salem Church was a full member church of the Worldwide Unity as of that date. We're going to play with this one here. Frederick William Marshall and Christian Gottlieb Reuter and company had laid out Salem with a nice broad main street, and then the ideas for streets going off of it. And you can see up here, turn your head sideways please, that in July of 1766, or 65, don't have my glasses here, July of 1766, 65, July 1765, Frederick William Marshall is up in Bethlehem, and he has sketched out this to show that's the way it ought to be. The main street coming into the square and going straight through it. Okay. Christian Gottlieb Reuter's idea was to have the square up here. Frederick William Marshall says, no, the square needs to be farther downstream so the water will flow, so we will impress George Washington when he visits in 1791. Yeah, we got running water. How come Philadelphia doesn't have running water? It did after it hired Benjamin Latrobe, a Moravian, to put the water system in. Here's what Gottlieb Reuter did as an addition to an overlay of Frederick William Marshall. And you can see Frederick William Marshall has his square a little bit farther down than Christian Gottlieb Reuter. There are those building houses. And this is where, well, actually the building houses he finally agreed here. It's about the same. Moved it up just a little bit. So it was, shall we say, more or less a compromise between the two. Back and forth. Back and forth. Oh, and that's the way the design, that map is. I have it up here. You can have a look at it after our talk. And that is just about the end of our talk. There is Christian Gottlieb Reuter's cartouche and compass rose for the his 1765 map of Salem, where he had the square moved up 1 block north of where it is today. Now, I want to conclude with one more little comment of Christian Gottlieb Reuter's memoir, that in the years 1760, 61, and 62, our departed brother continued his work, even though the Indian War was still partially raging, and completed the surveying of all of Wachovia and finished 4 large maps. This was written on his death in 1777. He not only surveyed the land, but made pertinent observations about the quality of the land. He laid out the lots to the best advantage and satisfaction of the interested parties in Wachovia, and as much as possible in squares. Besides this, he made many other measurements of maps, of which the one in 1767 of Salem will be a lasting memorial for our congregation, all of which are to be found preserved in our archives. Thank you very much. Word for next week, I expect every single one of you to be here for, not next week, next month, and this is going to be another good one, all sorts of goodies, and I quote the title, More Fund Finds from in the Vault. Nola Canals is going to dig hard and find some goody stuff for you, perhaps including a new discovery of, this is where that wind quintet is from. Barbara Strauss has put together yet another scattering of, or at least identified another scattering of, well, we got two parts here, one for oboe and the other one for?
Second oboe and bassoon is what we have. Second oboe and bassoon.
Second oboe and bassoon. For all you musicians, you better show up, and map makers. Questions? Thank you all very much for coming in. We do hope to see you again next month. Date for next month is February 11th. Put it on your calendar. Remember, if it snows and schools are closed, don't show up. We are not here.